It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody! It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello, all.
How are you guys doing?
I have enough adrenaline running through me right now to floor a rhino, but otherwise fine.
I'm doing just so-so.
Wow.
I think, Mikey, we have our episode title right there.
No, that's too long for a title, but
okay.
That's all right. We'll have one eventually at any rate. We always do. We always have a list.
I hope everybody out there is doing all right. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy? As I duck and cover.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not going to explode. Technically, after a line like that, the idea that I might say I got a big bag of nothing this week may sound anticlimactic as hell, but it's been one of those weeks where I haven't had any time to do anything other than to have life bite me in the ass. So I haven't done anything comics related all week. I have been dealing with other issues that are more pressing in a life sort of way. So I have nothing exciting to talk about here, or even interesting.
Wes?
I found myself in the recliner and decided to watch a few movies this weekend, other than our discussion movie tonight. I watched Comic Book the Movie. I watched Christopher Mihm's latest movie, Demon with the Atomic Brain. And I watched an early movie by Brian De Palma, the man who was the heir apparent to Hitchcock. But this was definitely not that. It's one of my favorites from 1974. It's Phantom of the Paradise. I still laugh at this movie. I sat down and I sang the entire soundtrack, and I like this movie. This is a fun movie to see as a parody of Phantom of the Opera, updated, and starring Paul Williams, who also wrote the music. So
okay, so you're laughing at something that's intentionally funny.
Yes.
Okay, good. Just checking.
That's what I was doing. By gum.
Now, it may be wrong in some way, on some level, for me to admit this, but I tried once to watch Comic Book the Movie, and I only made it about 10 minutes in, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I'm not 100% sure why that is now, but what was I missing? What is entertaining about that movie? Because it just struck me as being just awkward as hell.
I think some of the casting was pretty funny, with the man playing Captain Courage at the convention. There was a cameo scene with the lead actor, Mark Hamill, being hungry, walking through the San Diego Comic-Con, and he's so exhausted he wants to sit down, and he asks the gentleman if he could sit at that table. And the man looks at him and just flicks him away and says, "Move on." That was David Prowse. And with him were Jeremy Bulloch and who played Chewbacca?
Peter Mayhew.
Peter Mayhew. Those three were sitting there. So you had Darth Vader, Chewbacca, and Boba Fett sitting together.
All guys who were wearing masks in the movie.
Yes.
That's great. That's great.
I
may have to try to watch that again.
Yeah, I've got the movie. I watched it when I first bought it, but it's been several years, and I have not watched it since then. So I may have to pull it out, because I remember the whole thing about being a sort of a pseudo documentary type thing, and it starred Mark Hamill and all that. But
you see, that first scene just turned me off. It was a bunch of people sitting like in a conference room quibbling about some silliness I didn't quite get, I think, and I kind of got tired of it and turned it off. It's like, okay, it was on Netflix or something, so I wasn't out anything, but it just didn't, I don't know, there wasn't anything funny about it at that point. So it just didn't, I don't know. Like I said, I'm given your description, I'm willing to try again, but just force my way through the first scene and see what happens. But yeah, it was weird.
It is a long single joke, but I found it very entertaining with the people that appear, because Billy West plays the grandson of the creator of Captain Courage, and he is the voice of Fry on
He's the voice
Futurama.
He's the voice of about half of Futurama.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, seeing the voice actors there and things like that was pretty fun.
Okay. You talked me into it. I'll try again.
alrighty. For me, I'd like to say I've been doing a lot of reading, but I've done some, and I've caught up on some of my books, but I've actually been working on, and as you guys know, I've been working on fellowship items. There may be some stuff coming down the pike, some changes may be coming. So that's about as vague as I'm going to get. Yeah, you'll just have to stay tuned and see what I may be discussing.
Yeah, apparently we're all about the secret projects now. I don't know.
Sure, why not?
I don't know how that happened, but That's all right. It's all good.
There are plans within plans. To quote.
We have plans to have plans, to make plans.
Spiral within a spiral, a wheel within a wheel.
The wheel in the sky keeps turning.
That's right.
Don't know where I'll be tomorrow. And
now we'll take you to camera 2.
And for our next installment of Shatner Sings Journey. No, I'm not doing any more of that. Don't worry. Hang on to at least one of our listeners. Anyway.
Okay. Before we get into this week's topic, I want to take a couple of moments to thank our sponsor, Things from Another World, for supporting us geeks. Right now, the only sales items they've got are their evergreen deals, which are still very impressive. 40% off comics, statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off select pre-order manga titles. And 50% off Nick and Dent comics or trades. So if you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, click on our sponsors tab. You look at the bottom, you will see information about Things from Another World, and there will be some links there. You click on one of those, that will take you to their website, and you can access some of these deals, and that also lets them know that we sent you their way. So, thank you guys and girls for supporting us. We appreciate it. And y'all need to take advantage of these awesome deals. Alrighty. We are in the midst of our John Carpenter month. I almost said tribute, but I guess it could be a tribute. But look at his horror movies. And today we are looking at 1994's In the Mouth of Madness, which of course Mikey's been waiting for this one for a while. The premise of this film is a freelance insurance investigator played by Sam Neill is hired to locate a famous horror writer, or at least his latest book, which is called In the Mouth of Madness. And while he's doing this investigation, basically the whole planet goes to hell. And could it be based off this famous writer's tales, or is there something else? How's that? Is that a nice little synopsis?
That is. That's like free of spoilers of any kind, really.
Yeah.
Spot on, dude.
All right. So, Mikey, do we dare let you go first, or do we want Les to go?
I think I would like to let Les get a word in edgewise here, so I think he should go first.
There you go.
Les
All right, Les.
To pass the baton. Thank you ever so much.
Chicken.
That's me.
Maybe you should go first then, Tom, because you always make one of us go first. You haven't gone
Well,
first.
I usually go let someone go first because I've been speaking for the last 10 minutes.
Damn.
Some people are probably tired of hearing me talk.
Fine, I'll go first.
Alrighty.
And I will start this off by stating straight up, this is probably my favorite Carpenter movie. There are some good ones and there are some bad ones, as we saw last week. This is definitely my favorite. I mean, and there are a few reasons for that. And I think it's funny because one of the things I'd read in kind of studying up on this is that it tends to be one that people either love or hate. There is no in between. And so I definitely love it. And I think that part of that is that this movie is very heavily influenced by Lovecraft. If you're not familiar with H.P. Lovecraft, then you probably don't know much about horror, but that's all right. I'll tell you a little. He was a horror writer. He started publishing stuff in like the early 20s, and he died in the mid 30s. So for about 15 years, he was one of the mainstays of books like of magazines like Weird Tales and kind of that pulp horror thing. He was one of the mainstays, and so he is by a lot of people considered to be one of the fathers of modern horror fiction. And he is by probably even more people considered to be a complete and utter crackpot. The guy was a nut job. The guy was the man himself was a horrible racist and had horrendous ideas about certain things. But if you can set that aside and just look at the work, and honestly, you can see it in some of the work, but he also went places with his writing that nobody had been before and did all kinds of fun and weird stuff. And yes, there's baggage, but I mean, if you've not heard the name H.P. Lovecraft, you may have heard of Cthulhu. That's the guy. That's where all of that comes from. And so the guy who wrote this, Michael DeLuca, Carpenter did not write this movie, by the way. That is something that we probably will get to. But the guy who wrote it was admitted to being heavily influenced by Lovecraft, and it's even pretty obvious in the movie because a lot of the all of the titles of the Sutter Kane books are near analogs to some Lovecraft stories. In the Mouth of Madness, obviously, the analog to that was At the Mountains of Madness. And I'm not going to list them all because that would just be weird. But So, given that, and given that my fandom for Lovecraft's work, this this movie really draws that out well. And honestly, that I think is what part of what other people have problems with this movie is that there are things. It's we complained. Okay, I complained last week about Prince of Darkness being disjointed and not making sense. Well, In the Mouth of Madness is not really that much less disjointed, but at least with In the Mouth of Madness, it works. It's a different it's written differently, and it's written in a way that the weirdness in that regard makes more sense, which sounds strange now that I'm saying it out loud, but it flows together in a way that if you're even a little bit familiar with Lovecraft works, it's very reminiscent of it. And it's just, oh God, it's just so much better. And it's actually, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to interject and say, well, the thing is that's the whole movie. The whole movie is there's no rhyme or reason or even sanity to what is going on. It really makes you question what is going on. So that's part of it where that's not really what happens with Prince of Darkness.
Right, and they set it up in a actually very Lovecraftian way, but because the first scene in this movie is Trent, who is Sam Neill's character. His name's John Trent. Trent being dragged into an asylum. So he's, completely batshit freaking out crazy. And in a straitjacket, flailing and kicking and screaming and fighting as much as he can. And then it cuts to some time later when a psychiatrist played by David Warner shows up and Trent's calmed down and he's in his cell, padded cell and everything. And so the doctor starts talking to him, and he's calm and seemingly rational, and then it sort of goes into the flashback, which is the movie. And that whole flashback thing is kind of a Lovecraft trope. He used that quite a bit. But yeah, and so that he spends that whole flashback that is the movie basically showing Trent unraveling to get to the point where he started off flailing and kicking and screaming. And it builds, so it's intentionally building the crazy in, which makes the disjointedness make more sense. See, it kind of works if you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you passed over probably the best line in the whole movie.
Sorry about the balls?
Yeah, well, that too. But David Warner saying there's an orderly with swollen testicles who swears you want to get out of here.
Yeah, that's a good line. I have to, and that it comes from prim and proper David Warner is even so. It's just that much better.
Yes,
it's awesome. He's a very calm British type. It's great.
I'm with you. I love this film. I have at the time I've vaguely heard of the name Lovecraft. Really didn't know anything about Cthulhu, but I saw the movie and I was like, wow, this is such a... Is mindfuck a good word?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you're just going... I was along for the ride with Trent going, okay, is this really happening or what? Or, what the hell? And there's a lot of what the hell moments in this film.
Oh, yeah. And usually Trent is right along with you with the what the hell looks.
Yeah.
If there's one thing Sam Neill contributes to this movie, other than he just does a really nice job of portraying an unraveling guy, he's pretty good at the what the hell looks.
Yeah. And it's a nice, once again, a nice little good cast with Jurgen. I can never pronounce his name. Prochnow as Sutter Kane. He did a great job.
Oh yeah, he does the sinister thing well.
You already mentioned David Warner.
Charlton Heston appears in this.
Charlton Heston.
Was awesome.
In a John Carpenter film. How cool is that? Yes. And I did not realize this until I started doing research. A young Hayden Christensen is in the film.
Mm-hmm. He's the kid on the bike.
Yeah.
He's the kid on the bike. Who actually has it's a brief role, but it's a pretty significant one.
Yeah.
It's a little more of that mindfuck we're talking about, but yeah.
And then Bernie Casey, who recently passed away, is in here as Robbie, if I'm not mistaken, the one who is an associate or hired him.
He hired
Sam Neill's character with the previous case, which we catch the tail end of in the story.
Peter Jason thing.
Yeah, where they get there's a guy, Peter Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Just a great little cast, and they sell the movie real well.
Yep.
Your thoughts of the music?
I like that it's a little less electronic. I'm still not sold on it.
Yeah.
It has its moments, but overall, I don't think it adds a whole lot. Honestly, the place where the music works for me is the opening credits. The scenes that they're showing, which is like the inside of a printing press,
and
the music, which is, fairly hard rock.
Yeah,
that works.
It fits with the speed of the production line. Yeah, it works real well.
Other than Halloween, that's right there is probably the best use of Carpenter music that in my opinion, just in general, just that opening credit scene. The rest of this movie, I can take or leave the music. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. The movie, I think the movie could have been scored better, but that's also hard to gauge with the weirdness aspect and the insanity aspect. It's hard. This would be a hard movie to score, I would think, but I don't know.
Okay. All right, Les, you've been sitting out long enough.
Are you sure?
Your timeout is over. Come on.
I am a big fan of Lovecraft, and this was on the edge of being a Lovecraft story. The character Trent was hired to locate the author, like you said, Sutter Kane. And who was it that hired him?
To find Kane, it was Charlton Heston's character, the publisher.
Which is the publisher, right?
Yeah.
And
Kane Publishing.
And Trent is what? What is his position?
He's an insurance investigator.
And there's where I had a problem. Why are you getting an insurance investigator?
Well, he's a freelance investigator, which, yeah, you'd think they'd maybe have somebody who does that already. Wouldn't necessarily have to have if they're a big publishing firm, which to hear them talk, Sutter Kane is quite the cash cow.
Yeah, bigger than King.
Bigger
than King, yes.
Yeah.
And it moved well. I may have had a bad copy of it because the music was extremely loud and the conversations were extremely low. So I'm constantly adjusting my sound to hear everything. And I know I missed parts of it because either the sound drowned it out or I didn't get to the control fast enough to quiet it down or to lift the sound so I could hear them speak. It, like I said, it was a Lovecraftian story in essence. It took on the Groundhog Day story of repetition, but that was okay at this point. Yet there were things like the bicyclist that said he won't let me leave. And did I miss it as to who that was? Was that the boy that was abducted, just aged?
That's how I've always interpreted it.
Or was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they show the boy, and then they show the boy in old man makeup, as if he's been peddling for his entire life. Yeah.
I thought it was good. It had some moments. It had some jump out and spook you moments. And luckily it wasn't leaning on that to drive the movie. I enjoyed it. It was a pretty decent movie. Much better than last week, thank you. But this was part 3, is that right? Part 3 of the trilogy?
Yes.
Allegedly, yes. The Apocalypse trilogy.
Okay.
I wish I understood where that came from. I haven't had a chance to look it up yet. But
I could see where it could be accepted as that. So, it's one I would probably sit down and watch again. Probably closer to Halloween, just to get a full feel of it. But I thought it was good. I thought it was fun. And it was one of those that makes you think a hell of a lot as to what's going on. You have to be aware of the film itself at all times. Don't dare try to look away and say, oh yeah, that's no problem, I got this mastered. Because no, you don't. They're going to pull a stunt and make you miss it.
And you're not supposed to. That's the deal. That's what I think people miss in this movie. I think it's why there are people that hate this movie. It's because they don't get that you're not supposed to be able to follow it entirely. It's supposed to be jarring. I suspect that's why the music is louder at times, because it's supposed to be jarring. He's trying to knock you out of your comfort zone a little bit. And he does, I mean, it works the same with the visuals. You get, and again, back to the Lovecraft thing, a lot of the visuals, a lot of the creepy stuff is straight out of Lovecraft. And there's a lot of implication of the whole elder gods thing going on in the background. I mean, you get tentacles all over the place at one point in the movie, and that's that jarring thing again, that people don't like tentacles. Well, I say that most people don't like tentacles. There are weirdos, but
yes,
there's a lot of that in the movie, and it's all part of that story where you're watching Trent disintegrate into insanity, and that's straight out of Lovecraft. One of his more obscure stories, one of Lovecraft's more obscure stories, was actually the one I read first when I started reading Lovecraft. I picked up I'd heard the name for years and was like, okay, I'm finally going to break down and read this. So I picked up a collection, and the first story in the collection was an obscure little story called The Rats in the Walls. If you ever get a chance, find that story. You can actually go find Lovecraft stuff online. Oh crap! Now I don't remember the URL. I'll find it and stick it in the show notes. But it's all of his stories, just online, because they're pretty much all in the public domain at this point. The Rats in the Walls was the first one I read. Most people will tell you to start with Call of Cthulhu. Don't. Call of Cthulhu won't make sense if you haven't read other Lovecraft first. The Rats in the Walls is this nice little story about somebody going nuts. and there are a lot of parallels. They're very subtle parallels with this movie. I mean, you wouldn't watch this movie and think, oh yeah, that's the rats in the walls, but it's that part of what Lovecraft does, that he does a lot of playing with sanity, which, if you're familiar with the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game or any of its other variants, sanity is a big part of that, because that's what keeps you in the game. That's your main thing that you're trying to hang on to. By the time you get to the end of this movie, and one of the greatest final scenes in a movie, Carpenter or no Carpenter, one of my favorite final scenes in a movie is this one, with Trent in the movie theater by himself, and at that point it's clear that he's just completely lost it. Not to get too spoilery, but again, 20-year-old movie.
Right. How about you, Les? What were your thoughts about the ending?
I thought that it carried well. I thought that it was a really fine ending for a movie that still, even after that, didn't make all the sense in the world. And when I look at it, I'm thinking that I'm not going to ask for an explanation, because it's obvious that they are not going to offer an explanation. His scene walking out, yes, there were ideas of what may have happened, but once again, you didn't know if he was insane or if he was just dreaming all of this, which I had a take on too. I thought this is an enormous dream, and it's one that he did not wake up from. So it was a battle. When Warner first goes in to talk with Trent, and Trent has all the crosses drawn on his prison clothes and on the walls, on the bedding, on everything that's available, on the floors.
On his face.
On his face. It made me wonder. That made me wonder if this was a dream sequence, and that imagination had just taken over.
See, in another facet of Lovecraft's work, dreams and nightmares.
Yes. I think the first Lovecraft, I guess that was Ambrose Bierce that wrote that. Horla?
That was Guy de Maupassant.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well, there's another warped towards it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Very much so.
Yeah, getting outside of, I guess, Poe for a horror story was, at the age I was kind of tough, but you fight through it and you locate these other stories, and some of them are damn good. This one ranked right alongside something by Lovecraft.
I remember watching that ending, and yeah, it was just a final what the fuck. It was. I'm like, okay. I know some people had a problem with it, thought it was a bad ending. I'm like, no, actually, it kind of fits considering everything else that's going on in this film. I mean, the rest of it didn't make sense, so why should the ending make sense? You know?
Right, and I mean, the first thing if you're not watching it, if you're not thinking about sanity when you're watching it, then I can see where you could get lost in the kind of incongruity of it all. The fact that things just don't make sense and one thing doesn't follow another necessarily, and there's just layers and layers of weirdness going on. But yeah, if once you kind of once the sanity thing, once you kind of think back and realize, oh yeah, this started out in an asylum, the crazy makes a lot more sense. As weird as that sounds.
Right.
It makes sense as being crazy from the start, and then watching Trent kind of spiral down into it until he's finally just cackling like a madman at the end in the movie theater.
Very true.
So you feel this is Carpenter's best film, or it's your favorite? You think it's the best film?
It is.
I know it's your favorite.
It is my favorite. There. I mean, I don't know. It's I'm not comfortable saying it's his best.
Okay.
I will say it is my favorite. It is among his best. It certainly had the benefit, unlike last week, of actually being directed. So clearly when there's some effort put forth, he cranks out some good stuff. So
Yeah,
I understand. I think, well, and I mean, all things considered, I think it's fairly clear that it's not his best, because I mean, it only barely made back its budget. It didn't make much money at all. So not a whole hell of a lot of people went to see it in the theaters, myself included. I did not see it in the theater. No, I'm not gonna lie. And it's never really been universally accepted or loved. Like I said, it's very much a love-hate thing, which, I mean, if you ask me, that's not a factor. I mean, that some of the best movies are love-hate. Some of the best movies in history are love-hate. I mean, I could see why people would hate Citizen Kane, but that may be a different show. But yeah, like I said, definitely my favorite. One of the better horror ones for sure. Overall, probably more depth to it than most of his films, which I like. Also,
yeah.
I mean, I like the simplicity of a lot of Carpenter movies, but I also like deeper movies, and this is definitely a deeper movie.
Deep. I wouldn't say this is my favorite, but it's certainly up there. It actually kind of surprises me that I have not watched this. That there had been a long time between viewings of this film. But yeah, it's up there. Probably top 2 or 3. Les?
Yes. Is it my favorite? Probably not.
Okay.
One of those that did make you think. If you look at Halloween, Halloween didn't make you think as much until the very end of it. It was pretty laid out for the viewer as to what was transpiring. This one, though, made no bones as to what they wanted to do. And I don't have a problem with that. I thought it was a really good film.
Okay. All right. Well, any final thoughts before we move on? Well, I guess we need to do Sir System since we missed it last week, right?
Yeah, we kind of did, but that's all right.
Our rating?
It was pretty clear last week. I'm going to go 9 out of 10. Like I said, this is my favorite Carpenter flick. I mean, this and Halloween are I think, the closest he's come to perfect movies. They're very different
Okay.
movies, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would say probably 8.5 to 9 for about the same reason. Y'all know I'm a big Halloween fan, and I'm also a big fan of Assault on Precinct 13, which is another, as y'all said, it's a straightforward film, but it's a nice suspense with a little action and a great use of humor too. But yeah, I would definitely say I'll probably lean toward a 9 myself.
What about you, Les?
I'm going to give it a 7.5 to an 8. Maybe it was just the frame of mind I was watching it. Yeah, I thought it was very good, very well done. But I guess I have a little bit of delay in thinking it was. Well, to me, it's definitely not his best, but it sure as hell beats last week.
That wasn't hard.
I just no, it definitely wasn't. So I would give it a 7.5 to an 8.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. On that note, we will take a quick break, and we'll be back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks, and for this week, I lead off. For my first choice, I'm going with Aftershock Comics, and it's Fujitsu #2. Really love the first issue. This is a crazy, fun little book about his name's Fujitsu, and he's 120 or 130 years old, and he's kind of a Doc Savage, Buckaroo Banzai, that kind of a mixture, and someone's coming after him. So he just woke up after being in kind of a suspended animation for 2-3 years. So this was a fun book. I know Les enjoyed this one as well. So I'm curious to see where we go from there. I know one surprise of the first issue was it mentioned a local hamburger chain. It mentioned Whataburger.
Cool.
And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting.
Who's the writer? Is it a local boy?
Jay Nitz.
Oh. Is he local?
I don't know if he's local, but he obviously knows something about Whataburger.
He is witty, and I'm going to say, people, go ahead and pick this book up, because this is fun.
Cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was humorous, a lot of action, and of course we got a mystery to solve too. So all the elements that make a good book.
Darn right.
Alrighty, Mikey, you are next.
I am next, and I have a Boom Studios book for my first pick, and it is Unsound, #5. This is #5 of a 6-issue arc, and it is the story of Ashley, who is a freshly minted nurse who gets a job working at an asylum. And it's a really odd asylum because it was open for a real long time, and then it was closed, and now it has reopened. And so there's a good bit of weirdness and just generally in the building, and it turns out that that's only the surface. There's a whole lot of weirdness going on in this story, and so it's a lot of fun, and we're getting kind of near the end here. So if you haven't jumped on this one already, you should probably go find some back issues and get caught up, because this is going to be really cool.
Yeah. I wonder how this is going to end. But that's part of the fun.
Now that I'm thinking about it, this is kind of fitting given our topic for this week. But
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is another title to pick up.
Yeah.
Get in on this.
Alrighty, Wes.
My first pick is from Boom Studios. Sisters of Sorrow #4. This is the last issue in this series. And this is where the sisters are facing off with the task force that's been sent to take them out. So this could go either way. It's going to be interesting how they resolve it. But you also wonder, is it going to just be a firefight? Is it going to be a reconciliation? Which direction are they going to go? Because the sisters are abused women that bound together. And there's nothing like seeing a fake nun with a gun. Because this is pretty high tech. It's very tense type of book.
Yeah, there's a good bit of suspense in it, which
Yep.
works really well.
Yep. Alrighty. For my second choice, I'm going with a collection from DC Comics. And this is called Night Force by Wolfman and Cohen. So it's Marv Wolfman and Gene Cohen. And it's actually a hardcover. And this collects the entire original series, which was 14 issues, for the first time. And it actually also has the little short story that was in the in New Teen Titans 21, which was in the middle of the book. That was back when they were doing that kind of things in the 80s. Just like a 16 or 21 page little kind of a preview. I know they did that for He-Man and Masters of the Universe as well, among others. I mean, I have not read Night Force, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. So I'm glad to see that this has actually been collected. And surprised this is the first time, because we're talking, this was 1982. So we're talking 35 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is the same creative team that was on Tomb of Dracula for Marvel. So they can handle the supernatural and the dark and spooky stuff pretty well. So this is a must, and I'm gonna have to get it.
I agree. It is a strong storyline, and it is conveyed similar to Tomb of Dracula, but you can also see that it's a totally different look at the supernatural.
Sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, Mikey.
My second pick is actually another Boom Studios book. We got a lot of Boom this week. That's all right though. They're doing a lot of good stuff this week. But I'm going with Victor Laval's Destroyer. This is number 6 of 6. And if you have not been keeping up with this one, what's wrong with ya? No. This has been a really interesting... I think it's best described as a sequel to the Frankenstein novel. It is definitely set near future based on some of the tech going on. But yeah, it's very interesting in that there are some cool ideas in this. And I mean, the premise is that the Frankenstein monster basically from his self-imposed exile in Antarctica, essentially just gets up and just heads back to civilization. It doesn't speak, so nobody knows why exactly, but there's sort of stages of his journey, and it clearly has something to do with the child of the scientist who has essentially done a lot of Frankenstein-esque work to her son, because her son was, I won't go into any spoilers, but because you should start this from the beginning and pick it up, and this is the final issue, and it will be interesting to see how the final confrontation turns out.
It was a good slant.
Yeah, it's definitely it's cool to see a modern kind of, I mean, I don't want to call it a retelling because it's kind of not. Like I said, it's more of a sequel. It's more of like, okay, what would happen to Frankenstein's monster at a point in the near future when the technology that the technology kind of catches up to where the monster is in terms of creation and all of that. It's very cool. It's almost science-y, and it's almost gothic horror, and it's got a lot of fun elements in it.
Cool. Wes.
My second choice is a graphic novel from Scout Comics. And through the years, we've always wondered who would win: Batman, Captain America, Mighty Mouse, Superman. This one brings it forward, brings two icons forward: Santa versus Dracula. Count Dracula with Igor, Mr. Hyde, and their forces are trying to invade the North Pole to find Santa Claus's ability to gain entrance into any home. We already know what the entrance is. It's the closet from Monsters, Inc.
Right.
But this one is going to, what they say is going to be an epic battle of the ageless for the ages. So, yeah, I want in on this to see how they handle the whole look of it. They list it as a horror comic, so not a comedy, but a horror comic. We'll see how that turns.
Yeah, you sell it well. I'll say that.
Yep.
You sell it funny, but you sell it well.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Honorable mentions. I am going with IDW Publishing, and it's Disney Christmas Comics, and it's a hardcover collection. Yes, I'm sticking with Christmas since less open the door.
Wow.
These are stories. They're from the newspaper. I guess this is from the newspaper strip in the 60s, or there's just stories from the 60s. Included are Cruella's Very Funny Christmas, which I'm sure. Okay. Snow White's Christmas Surprise, Three Little Pigs Christmas Story, and Dumbo and the Christmas Mystery. These have been collected for the first time ever. So I'm definitely curious, and I'm not usually one of these that says, okay, let's start celebrating Christmas before Halloween, but, if it's out there, then that's kind of interesting, and I'm always wanting to check things out that I've never had a chance to check out before, especially if this is stuff from the 60s, but ought to be fun. Kind of get you in the Christmassy spirit. It's not too much longer.
Hey, worst case, you pick it up and put it on a shelf for 6 weeks, and
there you go.
Read it. I mean,
yeah, I would at least wait until Thanksgiving evening to start reading.
Sure. Just curl up with a good book on Black Friday when all the lunatics are out shopping, and There you go. That's a good one to go with.
There you go.
Until the football games start. But anyway.
There you go. Right. All right, Mikey, you are up next.
I am up next, and I actually have an IDW book as well.
I
know. This one is the Black Crown Quarterly, #1. It is a new anthology series, which is going to be published quarterly. But it's got there's some stars going here in this book, so I am curious to see where we go with this, and in the process of starting to learn more about this whole Black Crown thing, and it looks like this is going to be a great place to start doing that. So,
oh yeah,
I'm always down for a little anthology action, so I'm going to check this out.
Yeah, of course, Black Crown being Shelley Bond's imprint line, so I'm definitely curious. Of course, we got Kid Lobotomy already out in stores, and of course we'll have this coming out and a couple more series coming out. So the wait is over. We're gonna be able to check these out, and I've been excited about this, as well as Karen Berger's imprint with Dark Horse. I would like to see what they've got planned. Should be a lot of fun. Alrighty. Unless I believe you are next.
My honorable kind of fits the mood we're in. From Fantagraphics, Daddy Lost His Head. These are stories by Jack Kamen with artwork by Al Feldstein. They even say that another contributor is Ray Bradbury. These are stories from the classic EC horror books, The Vault of Horror, Haunt of Fear, Tales from the Crypt, things like that. And you've got 20 of these classic stories in this book, and I love the EC comics growing up as a kid, and I wish I could afford the collections. But this will give me a taste of some of their earlier stuff.
Very cool.
Sweet.
Awesome. Good choice as always, of course. Any special mentions or shout-outs this week?
Not me, man.
Nothing here.
Alrighty. Let's get to our regular shout-outs then. First off, want to thank Manny the Martyr for the awesome music that is a part of our podcast. I saw a teaser the other day. I wonder if Manny's coming back. That would be awesome. Who knows? We'll have to just keep on the lookout. But definitely check out their music. We'll have a link in our show notes, or if you go to our website and click on go to our podcast page, you'll see their logo. You can click on that, and I'll gain you access to their music, and it's really cool stuff. So check it out. Thank you, guys. Also, want to thank the fine men and women that make the Pottern family on Twitter for sharing the word of the fellowship by retweeting our links and all the good stuff. Thank you, guys. You're looking for a podcast, it doesn't matter, whatever you're looking for, just go to Twitter. You don't necessarily have to have an account. Just do search hashtag Pottern Family. Sorry, I'm having problems tonight. Hashtag Pottern Family, and hundreds upon hundreds of shows. Have fun. You'll find something that you'll really like. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Thank you guys for your support. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We appreciate your support with the previous episodes. It's always appreciated. We always value your feedback. We're always open for comments, suggestions, questions, anything else. And there are several ways you can contact us. You can shoot us an email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and go to our About Us page, and there's a contact form. You can fill out whatever you like there. Or you can contact us through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. That's all one word. We're obviously on Twitter, at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us there. Mikey and I have our own personal accounts on Twitter. Mike is at Mikey Geek, and I'm at Tom TC Geek. Feel free to follow us. And wherever you listen or download our episodes, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and now on iHeartRadio. Yes, we are on there. Mm-hmm. We don't know when that happened, but it has happened, and we are happy about that. Mm-hmm. Please rate our shows, whether it's the stars or thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever system they use. Please do that, and if you have a couple extra minutes, a review would be awesome. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think you got it.
Okay. Alrighty. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, just thanks, everybody.
I'm going to say thanks and try out the In the Mouth of Madness movie. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We appreciate your support. And hope you all have a good week. Until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,